Good evening, and may the Lord bless you mightily. I just want to jump on for a few minutes and I want to talk about what the news is bringing out here. So, right now, we are seeing an awful lot in regards to wars and rumours of wars. We're seeing the conversation being postulated within the news cycle that they are continually talking about wars and rumours of wars. And obviously, this is scripture. Matthew 24, verse 6 tells us so. It says that, and you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not troubled, for all this has to come, but the end is still to come. This is something that we need to be aware of, that in this time, in this season, that wars, rumors of wars will continually be in the headlines. But I want to talk about it from a prophetic picture of this. This is the Olivet Discourse. So Jesus is laying this out as one of the birth pangs for the end times. Now, that does not mean to birth the end times. It is the birth pangs for the time and the emergence of the lawless one, the time of the day of the Lord, the great tribulation, Jacob's trouble, Jeremiah 30 verse 7. And it's telling that, it's giving us an insight into that, into those times ahead of us, that this is a birth pang. This is something that we can go on the checklist, boom. But at the same time, it's worrying in the natural. Now, Jesus gives us the clear mandate here: let not your heart be troubled, for all this must come to pass. So we're not to be troubled by these things, but we are to be aware of these things. I know that whenever the news broke last week about possible UK conscription, possible conscription and conscription ages, that this sparked off a debate in our house. But when it comes to it, it's nothing for us to get fearful about. You have to realize who we are in Christ, that we are created to be overcomers, that we are created to be peacemakers. And when that's said, that doesn't mean that there's the absence of war. It means that in the presence of conflict in any situation, we walk on established steps of victory. So we're to be of good cheer, for Christ has first overcome the world. Right? So when the world is against us, we're to be of good cheer because Christ has first overcome it. So we walk in his footsteps, which are the steps in the Greek, Irene, which means peace established after victory. We're to walk in those steps already established. So we are seeing all of this come to pass. We're seeing the idea of World War III being in the news, being in the narrative, being the constant, I guess, threat. We're seeing all of these things with what happened in Jordan recently, with North Korea's rocket man continually firing off rockets, with Hamas, with Palestine, with Israel, with Syria. We're seeing all of this. This is a quote off Twitter from Seth Keshel. World War III is a really good way to get much of the world to forget about the government's corruption and their enslavement of citizens to a tyrannical global order. Sort of like distracting a house fire, or sort of like starting a house fire to distract from a dog accident. Now, even though that's kind of tongue-in-cheek, it is very true. Remember that this year is the year of what? It's the year of elections. So I'm not talking about in prophetic terms. This is very much the year of elections, when half of the world, at least, there have major elections down the pipeline, so that we know that there's going to be, in one way or another, a possible shaking up of the system, because so much of the world order is going through an election process this year. Now, if you look through cycles in the past, whenever you were maybe unpopular in elections, whenever all of that was coming, war is a good distraction, because this is what they've always, it's the same playbook. They use war to try and rally support behind the nation and identifying the nation's national pride. Now, where we have a problem with this, or where the world has a problem with this, is specifically in the West. There's been a knocking, an eradication of national pride. It's been unpopular. In fact, it's been seen as somewhat evil to be proud of where you come from. And there was already, I think, Russell Brand put out a poll that it was done in jest, but who would you want to be the next Prime Minister? Rishi Sunak, Keir Starmer, or Vladimir Putin? And I think 94% of those who voted, which is like 40,000 people who voted, 94% chose Putin. And that just shows you that there's an eradication of national pride and there's an eradication of national identity, which makes this, if there is war that breaks out, makes it a time in which there will be an upsetting of the apple cart, because certain portions of the world are so, not just they're lacking pride in where they come from, but they tend to be angry about where they come from. They tend to be angry at the place that they come from for existing. And you could see this primarily on display in America, where you see this continually. And if you were to take a guess at like who you would think would come out on top on a global conflict, if a global conflict did break out, I don't know where your money would be, but I could tell you that my money would not be on the current American regime. I want to tell you a few things. I want to tell you first off that this, I believe, including the wars and the rumors of wars, Jesus shows us that this is a prophetic statement, that this is something to come, but this is not something that has caught the Christian off guard, has caught the church off guard, and nor, unfortunately, has it caught the demonic, satanic world off guard. So I've shared this before. Freemason Albert Pike, 33rd degree Freemason, and Luciferian, open Luciferian, had written back in 1871 a group of letters, or a letter specifically, but in that letter he outlined 3 different world wars. And the First World War, he talked about it being about the Tsars. He talked about it being about, he named who was involved, who was going to be involved, Germany and so on. And the same with the Second World War. He said that he even coined the phrase in that letter of Nazism, despite Nazi not being a used word at that time. It would, like, there was no Nazi party until the 1930s. So 1933, whenever Hitler became Chancellor, there was none of that. So this is back in 1871. Now the accuracy or the historicity of it, I don't know, but it's very telling that the first prediction and the second prediction of a world war came true. The Third World War is predicted too. Now I'm going to bring these up. So this is Albert Pike's letter to Mazzini, dated August 15th, 1871. Now this is just a printout from it. I've read these out. I've read out the First World War prediction, and it was historically on point, despite it being, from his terms, a futurist declaration. Same with the Second World War. The Third World War, this is taken and printed from the letter, must be fomented by taking advantages of the differences by the agent terror of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam, the Islamic Arabic world, and political Zionism, the state of Israel, must mutually destroy each other. Now what sort of kicked us up into the nth gear war-wise is what's broken out since October 7th. The horrific events of October 7th have led us down this path, but you have to understand that there is a satanic agenda behind it. Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on the issue. Now, just a quick question, has the world been divided on the issue of what happened on October 7th? Will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economical exhaustion. We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm, which in all of its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, origin of savagery, and of the most bloody turmoil then everywhere. Now it goes on, but unfortunately for some reason my quote cuts off there, but it goes on that in Pike's vision of this, it would bring about worship of Lucifer, because that's who he worshipped. Now, regardless of your political outlook, I want to assure you of something. There is certainly a prophetic vision there, and it is satanic in origin, but it is not completely truthful. And remember, that's how the enemy works. The enemy doesn't come out right with a blatant lie. He uses partial truth, and then he sows the division and diversion in. We know that it says about the eradication of Israel. We know that Israel will not be eradicated from the land, because we know that when it comes to Jeremiah 30:7, that the time of Jacob's trouble, all of Daniel, from Daniel 9:27, and then Revelation and from chapter 4 to chapter 19, it is all focused in on Israel. So Israel is not gone from existence. Ezekiel 38 has not happened, is not gone from existence. It will not be removed from the land. It will not be annihilated. But understand that if that is to be believed as historically accurate, then there is a focus at provoking a World War III. Certainly from some subversive element, some, as he would have saw, the agent provocateurs, those who would actually try and destroy through whatever means and bring about some sort of ideological destruction so that they can pave, in their eyes, a new world order. Now, there will be the rise of the beast system, but the real new world order will come in during the millennial reign. So we're not to be shaken, we're not to be worried, but we are to be aware of the strategies. I'm going to misquote this, but in Sun Tzu's Art of War, there's a part in which he says, to know one's enemy and to know oneself means that there's nothing to fear about what's coming. Now, if we know the strategies of the enemy, and Albert Pike has basically laid them out there, if we know the strategies of the enemy to provoke a war, to bring catastrophe, to bring division and discord, to sow a serpentine vision of the future and bring in a new world order. Now we know that that can't happen unless first Jesus, the only one who is worthy to, opens up the seals and allows that time period to happen. But if we know the strategy, we have to also know who we are and who we are created to be. And we are sons of the Most High. If you're born again, spirit-filled Christian, if you're a follower of Jesus Christ, if you're letting yourself live as a living sacrifice, and you are denying the world, at enmity with the world, to be in love with Jesus, then you have to understand that that means that you're more than an overcomer. That means that there's more with you than there are with them. That means that you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. And that means that you're not to fear. Okay, you're not given a spirit of fear. Now, all of that aside, I shared this. This was a revelation I got a few weeks ago. I was just praying. I wasn't even reading at the time, and God just kind of downloaded a pattern to me. And He showed me back in 1907. In 1907, the guy who was identified or called himself the Beast, Aleister Crowley. Now, Aleister Crowley conducted a summoning ceremony. I've told you this, so if you want to switch off, that's great. But he conducted a summoning ceremony. And as he conducted a summoning ceremony, he believed that he was replicating something done about 200 years before. And he was attempting to summon the Angel of the Abyss. Now, the Angel of the Abyss is identified in Scripture as Abaddon or Apollyon in Revelation chapter 9. And in Revelation chapter 9, we know that this Angel of the Abyss is also termed, because the names Apollyon and Abaddon mean destroyer. Now, he believed he channeled this. He had this summoning ceremony, and he says in his words that he defeated this Angel of the Abyss. Absolute rubbish, he didn't. I believe there was probably a possession that came from that. But if you go forward 7 years from 1907, from that channeling event, you get to 1914 and you get World War I. devastation across the world. Now, if you go to Adolf Hitler in 1933, he met with his occult astrologer Hanussen, and we know that Hitler was embroiled in the occult through the Thule Society and so on, but he ended up doing this ceremony and this thing with Hanussen, and a month later he was elected as Chancellor. But if you go 6 years after 1933, you get to 1939, and you get the invasion of Poland, and you get World War II. So from the point of summoning in 1907, 7 years later, is World War I. From the point of summoning in 1933 to 6 years later, World War II. If you go to 1996, now so I'm hoping you heard all that, but if not, sorry, my screen cut out. So anyway, in 2016 you had the opening ceremony of CERN, and if anybody wants to see and doesn't believe that's a summoning ceremony, even when the scientists believed that they were opening up a portal to another world, Baphomet was key on display at that ceremony. Go forward from 2016, you went 7, 6, 5, 4 years, you get to 2020, and you get another global catastrophe. Now, then we get to 2022. And 2022, we had on display a Baal ceremony, Baal worshipping ceremony at the Commonwealth Games. And from that ceremony, even if you go deeper into it, it was on underneath those that area there was catacombs, and underneath those catacombs there's supposed to have been ancient Baal worship going on. So they had this Baal ceremony at the Commonwealth Games opening, and from that, 3 years later, there, if the pattern were to be is correct, then that would mean some sort of global catastrophe. Now I don't know what that means. I'm not claiming to be a prophet in here. I'm just sharing with you what God has shared to me, and I'm going to show you just a little video of it. be written down as factual or anything like that, but I am saying that God showed it to me, so I wanted to share it with you. And of wars, like Sun Tzu wrote, understand your enemy, but understand you, and you have nothing to fear. If I understand that my enemy, if I understand the enemy of Jesus Christ, the enemy of the church, Satan himself, is planning to unveil a strategy, and people like Albert Pike and so on, they believe that strategy is on the table, that it's being used, that it's ready to be displayed. Then I understand where he's going, and I understand who I am, and who I am is and who you are, if you're a child of God, is someone that brings peace into the situation, brings light into darkness. As the war scrolls tell us that were found in Quran in 1947, the war scrolls, the Essene scrolls, tell us that in the end times there will be a war, but it'll be a war between the sons of light and the sons of Belial, the sons of darkness. So I'm saying that our job is to stand in victory. Our job is to equip ourselves with the armor of God, and our job at this time is to witness and shine the light of Jesus Christ like never before. Guys, God bless. I call you the head and not the tail, above and not beneath, kings, queens, and high priests, in Jesus' mighty name. If you got something from this video,